It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome to the channel, everybody. I'm very excited today to be joined yet again by the one and only, the inimitable Ric Meyers. You know who he is. I hope you know who he is. If you don't know who he is, author, audio commentator, Comic-Con paneler, among many other things. Martial Arts Hall of Fame, is that true?
Several. I'm in at least four different international martial arts Hall of Fames. And also on Netflix now, on the documentary Iron Fist and Kung Fu Kicks, and also wrote the documentary on Amazon Prime, Films of Fury, the Kung Fu movie.
Right, yeah, I watched that one before our last interview after I read your book.
Yeah.
Um, so we're here to talk today specifically about your experiences in and around the Hong Kong film industry.
Right.
And so I thought an interesting first question for me, personally, to hear your kind of experience on this is what it was like watching all of these Hong Kong films and having this idea of what Hong Kong might be in your head, and then actually going there and seeing what it was really like for real. And like, what was there a disparity, or was it what you expected? And
Just like most things, I do a lot of research. I believe I set at least one of my novels in China or Hong Kong. So of course I'd done a lot of research on it. And even though this was back when we didn't have the internet and all the rest of it, so you could go around the world at any moment, I had a lot of lore. There was a lot, and also the people who introduced me to Hong Kong cinema had gone there. So they were able to, I don't like to go any place where I don't have a friend waiting.
yeah,
So they
I
could
hear
show
that.
me
Yeah.
there. And so that's what happened in this case too. What actually happened was that, I don't know if I told this whole story on the previous interview, but Larry Hama from Marvel Comics, the creator of the G.I. Joe comic world and all the rest
Oh,
of it,
wow.
he introduced me to both samurai cinema and Hong Kong cinema and Kung Fu cinema. Before then, I had seen Five Fingers of Death and I had seen the Bruce Lee movies, but they didn't speak to me. They were all about being hurt and getting hurt and being angry and being badass and all this stuff. Not my interest. But then Larry introduced me to Jackie Chan, Drunken Master, Drunken Monkey in a Tiger's Eye, actually. And I was like, baboom. And I went to my publisher and said, I want to write a book about this stuff. And they said, here's $750, go ahead. And then it was a matter of researching. So again, World North Hall was putting these movies, Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest movies, on syndicated television. Ocean Shores was taking all the independent Kung Fu films, not Shaw Brothers, not Golden Harvest, and putting them on VHS tapes and trying to get them into blockbusters and video stores. Mm-hmm. And so when I showed up at their door, they all went, and and I had my other books that I could show them. So I wasn't just a guy, I want to write a book. I had already written a bunch of books. So they fell to their knees, basically kissed my ring. I had to go buy a ring that they could kiss. And I said, I don't want your kisses. I want all your stuff. I want all the material. And World Northall gave me, I still have hundreds and hundreds of pictures. They also put me in touch with all these guys. But Ocean Shores, who was trying to educate networks and video stores, they both bought hundreds of my books and gave them to syndicated stations all over the country and video stores all over the country. And they said, we want to thank you. In addition to buying your book, is there anything else we can do for you? And I said, send me to Hong Kong. And Ocean Shores went, that's where our main office is. I mean, we don't have the budget to pay you, but I said, well, tell you what, hire me as a worker and I will make 2 documentaries for you from all your footage, from all the footage you have in your library. And that resulted in This Is Kung Fu and Ninja Mania, 2 videos that I made for them. But we'll get into that because that's part of the story. After our last interview, I realized you're called the HK Appreciation Society, right? Mm-hmm. And I have spent a lot of time in Hong Kong during the golden age. But I didn't talk about that. I was talking about Kung Fu and all this other crap. So I wanted to talk about specifically the experiences of being in Hong Kong and going to all these offices. And because I have a lot of them, and I've never put them down. It's been 10 years now since since Films of Fury, the Kung Fu movie book. So I'm thinking about doing another book about Kung Fu, but also my experiences with these guys and all the meetings and stuff. And that's what this is sort of like a precursor to. Maybe
Okay, well, that's great.
inspired
Yeah.
me to actually write it.
Okay.
So Ocean Shores got me a ticket on Japan Airlines, one of the best, not a Hong Kong airline. I did a Hong Kong later, but this was a Japan airline. And I was thrilled. I had been on the set of Superman, so I had taken planes. I'd been to Pinewood Studios and stuff when I was.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that. Yeah, the Richard Donner.
Yeah, when I was with
yeah.
Starlight. But this was my first, Asian trip, and it was just kind of like, and also was great because Japan Airlines stops in Japan on the way over.
Oh, that's nice.
And at that time, we couldn't cross Russian airspace, so we had to go the long way around. So it was a very long trip. That's why we stopped in Japan. And they told me, if you pay an extra $50, you can stay in Japan as long as you want. And I had friends in Japan, so I did that on the way back. But that's another
it's another
podcast.
story.
That's another interview when I talk about my Japanese adventures. But be that as it may, so we have a layover in Japan. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't even get to the best part. What am I talking about? Ocean Shores just kept trying to make up the fact they couldn't pay me. So they put me in business class.
Okay.
On Japan Airlines, which is still one of the best airlines in the world.
Yeah.
So, and it turns out I was only one. It was a weird flight, of course. They wanted to get as low a price as they could. So it was a weird hour. And I'm sitting in business class. There's only one other person in business class. Now listen to me, William.
Okay.
You figure out the odds of this. There was one other person in business class, and I turned around and looked at him. My jaw dropped. It was Kwon Tak Hing.
What?
It was Kwon Tak Hing, the guy who played Wong Fei Hong in 100 movies.
And he was just on the plane?
He's the only other guy in business class. His son came back from coach to not interrogate, to interpret, to translate for me. It was like, I was like, what the jeez? And I just sort of went, this trip is blessed. This trip is blessed.
Yeah, that's a very
first person I see on the plane. And of course, this was back in whatever, 1980 or whatever it was, 1980. It was either the late 70s or the early 80s. I can never quite figure it out. I should check the copyright on This Is Kung Fu. That might be able to tell me. But here it is. Here's his business card.
Wow. Oh, wow. Look at that.
Which and you can also, I have a bunch of other business cards, which we can get through from career. There was, Tai Sang, here's, Teresa Mo from the JC group.
Oh, yeah.
The Jackie Chan group. Lip Sync, who were the dubbers for most of the films over there.
Oh, wow.
Wait a minute, where's the other super cool ones? Helen Chang, the distribution and administrator for Film Workshop, Choi Harp's company.
Wow, that's so cool.
Cinema City.
Look at the Cinema City. I recognize that the logo's there. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into that because that was part of my trip. So anyway, these were the guys who sent me Ocean Shores Video, who were really big for a time.
Did they have offices in New York? Is that where did you just?
They had offices in New York. They had offices in LA. I did most of my communication with them because in the mid 80s, I was working for the Twilight Zone on CBS. So I took the time to went and visit them constantly at their tiny little hovel. They had a little shack in some little California town.
Really?
And Matthew Tso was my liaison with Jackson Hung, the head of Ocean Shores in Hong Kong. So I'm at Japan Airlines. I talk to Kwon Tak Hing. Kwon Tak Hing gives me his card. I go and visit his apothecary because he became Wong Fei Hong. He wasn't Kwon Tak Hing anymore. He was the actor who played Wong Fei Hong,
Yeah.
like James Bond. So I went and visited his tiny little pharmacy, but I didn't know enough about Chinese medicine at the time to really take advantage of it. And he didn't have little souvenirs in the store, and he wasn't in the store that when I visited. So, oh well, but still, that was.
But I mean, still, you met him on the airplane. You got his business card, right?
yeah, and I was so irritated because it was so early. We didn't have the phones then, and I didn't have a camera with me. It was in my bag. It was in my checked.
It was like checked in the luggage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to his son. Do you have a camera? And
Oh man.
that's not the last issue with cameras I had on in this adventure. It so basically problems with cameras are the bookends for this trip.
Okay.
Remind me at the end about my final tragedy with cameras.
Okay.
So anyway, so we're on the plane. I just have to talk a little bit about the plane. It's Japan Airlines. They treat you the way somebody said it in Taiwan. They treat you like retarded kings. You know, here, Mr. Gaijin, do you want a hot towel? You know, because they're used to Americans, spitting on their hospitality because
Well,
they're.
yeah, I don't know if we talked about this, but I lived in Japan for a year.
Oh, wow. Where in
Yeah,
Japan?
in Tokyo.
Oh, in Tokyo. Awesome. We
Yeah,
could. Well,
so
that's the next podcast.
yeah, right.
The next
But I very
So,
much did get that sense of like they're so nice to you, but they're also like you probably don't get what's going on here, so I'm gonna try to
yeah,
yeah.
you have to read. That's why I always name myself whatever they call me behind my back. So when they asked me after this first trip in Hong Kong, I became Mo Guilo, which means hairy foreign devil. So there you go. So I'm on the plane. It's a wonderful trip. I'm excited as all get out. They have Japanese and Chinese movies on the entertainment.
Oh wow.
Food is great. They give me the slippers. They give me everything. And we're coming into Hong Kong. And the pilot, they have some of the best pilots in the world, comes onto the intercom and goes, if you look out the left-hand side windows of the plane, you will notice Typhoon Peggy. And I was on the left side, so I looked on the left side. It looked like a gigantic black cyclotron with lightning bolts instead of horses. It looked like a merry-go-round with lightning bolts.
Was
It
it
was,
over the ocean or over?
yeah, it was out. It was in this. It was in the sky. It was
Wow.
Typhoon. It's a huge, like not even. It's a double mushroom. Mushroom at the top, mushroom at the bottom, cylindrical, all black, coiling with lightning bolts. Typhoon Peggy. And then, as the Japanese pilot finished his little line, he said, "We will endeavor to avoid it."
We'll see what we
And
can do.
we'll see what we can do, because I talked the next day at Ocean Shore's offices. There were some people in from Macau who turned out to be on the flight following me. And we landed at that time. The Hong Kong airport was in the middle of the city.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. Yeah, where you just come right down into it's like in
It was
Kowloon or something. Yeah.
astonishing because I'm looking at both windows and I'm looking in windows of skyscrapers going by. It was like, holy, like waving at, how you doing? Put some clothes on. And but then again, so we land. The guys from Macau the next day at Ocean Shore said we were like on a Disneyland roller coaster.
Oh,
Our plane was doing this, that, and the other thing, and we came in like nothing.
lucky you avoided it then.
Yeah, Japan Airlines, baby.
Successful endeavor.
Japan Airlines, and I get
Yeah.
off, and at that time again, because of the old-fashioned airport, we didn't go through a tunnel. We went out into the air. I stepped into Hong Kong. It's August, so of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
Ocean Shores couldn't afford me a flight during prime time. I'm coming in the dog days of summer.
Nice and humid.
My glasses immediately fog up. And I developed what I soon called my sweatshirt. Because no matter what shirt you wore, no matter how thin, you developed a layer of sweat between the shirt and you for the whole trip. It's
Oh,
over
man.
90 degrees, over 90% humidity.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it was a dry heat. And I'm very lucky so far as I know. My wife and other people have told me that, I don't stink.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was very nice. Because I may stink up in other ways, but I don't smell,
Yeah.
smell my aroma. So I just naturally said, I'm going to be used to being wearing a wet shirt, a sweatshirt for the entire trip. And it was a 3-week trip. They put me up for 3 weeks.
Well, that's nice.
And I I immediately went from the airport to to Ocean Shores, but there were signs everywhere saying Typhoon Peggy. There were Typhoon Peggy warnings.
Such an
They,
odd name for a typhoon, too.
well, they name them just like hurricanes. They name them.
Yeah,
They give them female names.
Peggy is like,
It probably wasn't Peggy in Chinese
yeah.
or Cantonese. It was probably, it's just Peggy in English. So they were closed. So I went back to the hotel. They put me up in this wonderful place right on Hong Kong Harbor on the Hong Kong side. How much do you know about Hong Kong?
No, I mean, I just from what I know from movies.
Because you haven't been there.
No.
It's a film. It's a film noir city. It's at that time especially. It's Blade Runner. I called it New York on its side. The whole thing, it's like imagine Manhattan, then put it on its side.
Tip it over, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all neon, it's all sweaty, it's all dramatic. It's not gloomy, it's dramatic.
Yeah.
So there's Hong Kong Island, large island, and across the bay is Kowloon, which connects to the New Territories and China.
Okay.
They put me on the Hong Kong side because they were on the Hong Kong side. And they were all in, and also the energy is awesome. It was awesome, changed. Ever since the Chinese took over, it changed.
Yeah.
So, but at that time they were free. They were under British rule. They were independent. And so everybody was kind of happy. They had the best of all worlds. And so they complained they wanted to be totally free. They didn't want the British over them, but they learned very quickly, better the British than the Chinese, but oh well.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked back to the hotel. The hotel was a residential hotel. They had a restaurant on the 4th floor for guilo, and which served, the usual. And I said, well, fuck that.
The foreign devil foods.
Yeah, that's right. Which they didn't do as well as the Chinese food. So I found out the Cantonese restaurant was on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
And I went there and I ate with chopsticks, and I had what they all ate. And of course I'm the only white guy in there.
Yeah.
And they're all looking at me because I'm guilo, but because I'm using chopsticks. I go, we don't use chopsticks. What, you've never heard of the fork? And they're all eating their pudding and their morning soup with forks and spoons. And I'm going, man, I got to learn how to use it. Next day, Typhoon Peggy's pretty much gone. It's still Blade Runner though. It's still a film noir. It's raining. And I was able to walk from my hotel, which was about a mile away. I was in a section called Central. That's where the hotel was. But the Ocean Shores place was in Causeway Bay, which is
Okay,
where
I've
all
heard
the
of that
big
before. Yeah.
yeah, and shopping centers, and it's like everything's right on the water.
Mm-hmm.
So except when I went to the other side of the island, I discovered the rest of the island, but most of us were and they were in this glorious 17-story building, really clean, really brand new. And they were across the street from a gigantic airplane hangar-sized restaurant, which was attached to a Shaw Brothers movie theater.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I'm home.
That's so cool. It
And
just showed Shaw Brothers movies all day, every day.
Oh yeah, every week. Every week they changed.
That sounds like heaven.
It pretty much. They also had great car dealerships, and everybody had these super fancy cars. But around the block, they had a fabulous mix of stores, of jewelry stores, of herb stores, of what was the other stuff that I loved in that neighborhood? They had a tailor. I used a tailor there. I was able to get slacks. I got a bunch of slacks for the equivalent of something like $17 that were tailor made. And it was old man. When I came back in 2001, we'll get to that trip.
Okay.
He was gone. He had died.
Oh.
Matter of fact, I had arrived a week after he had died.
Oh, wow.
Because I was finally going to get an entire suit.
Yeah.
Suit. But he was gone. So anyway, Le Quoc Hotel was awesome. It was like a 3-room suite, but it was really very much YMCA style room. But they had a television, all Chinese channels. I would come home let me get to that. I met everybody at the place, and the first thing they did, of course, is they brought me to the airplane hangar restaurant.
Okay.
It seemed like there was more staff than customers, but there were it was like 3 different football field size, and dozens, if not must have been hundreds of employees, all in different uniforms denoting different things.
Oh,
And
wow.
we sat at the big round table with his staff. There was Jackson Hung, who led the place, and all the other guys. And we were all sitting around, and again, they wanted to look, because this is the first time I met Jackson Hung, who's the head of the entire
Okay.
group. And they wanted to check out Mo Guilo. They wanted to see what this guy was like. So everybody was like, and they started screwing with me. And they would order all this stuff that they thought would shock me.
Oh, yeah, I know about that from Japan.
Oh yeah, and the biggest thing, they didn't know me very well, did they? The biggest thing they said, they in came a bird. A bird would sit on the table, and I knew it was something unusual because they were all staring at it. They're always like, they all wanted to see how I would react. And I'm eating it, it's delicious. And they said, "You know what that is?" And I'm saying, "I'm guessing pigeon." And they went, "Yeah, it's pigeon." I said, "Of course it's pigeon. Why wouldn't it be pigeon?" And then they started teaching me how to best use the chopsticks. And we went there every day for lunch when I was there. And I learned how to pick up a fried peanut and also peel it. And then I graduated from chopstick school by picking up an ice cube.
Oh, that's like high level. Yeah.
So at that point, and they saw, just like everyone else I'd ever worked with, they saw that I wasn't interested in throwing my guilo weight around, and I was heavier then. I was interested in learning. I was interested in participating. I was interested in contributing. So that's why I spent, oh yeah, it was awesome. They were up on whatever, 16th, whatever floor. So it was overlooking all of Hong Kong. They had a
That's so
beautiful
cool.
office with all these wonderful windows. And they put me in the library. They put me in the storeroom, basically, where they had all their videos out, boxes, piles and piles of them. And I spent my days going through every single movie. I would sit on the floor, cross-legged, in front of their machine, their VHS, they had the big ones. They had the half-inch video machines.
Okay.
And I would put in the tape, put it down, watch the movie, and because no computers, I'm taking down notes.
Write everything down, right? Yeah.
What movie, what time in the movie. Sometimes I would have to time it. This is a great scene. This is a great scene. And that's what I did for like 3 weeks. And I put together, and to jump ahead, I was expecting, silly me, that they would put me in a studio where they made their videos, because they brought me to the studio where they made their, they put on the titles, their new titles, I'm not, Ocean Shores Video Presents. And I thought that's where they were going to bring me to make the documentaries, the 2 documentaries. Nope. They brought me to the New Territories, which is on the Kowloon side, closer to China, in a huge warehouse with no air conditioning,
Oh, nice.
filled with workers wearing, no shirts or T-shirts and their shorts, making copies. That's all they did all day long, make copies.
Oh, like where they were duplicating all the videos?
That's right. And they brought me to a stand which had 2 videotape machines, one master, one VHS to put it on the VHS, and an open mic in the middle of the factory floor. So basically my job was to put the tape in, hit play and fast forward until it got to the scene I was looking for, then hit record on the other machine, and then and before I could do this, I had to turn to all the workers who knew no English, and I didn't know enough. I knew some Cantonese at this point, but not enough. And I would have to turn to everybody and go, shh, shh.
It's so awkward.
and I'm going to do my impersonation of virtually every guy who worked there. They would turn and look at me and they go, and I'm there with the microphone, reading from my script, praying I don't fuck up. So if you ever see these documentaries, I believe I have a copy of one of them here. I can take a break and show you. I should have had that out here, but you can hear the panic in my voice with virtually every recording.
This sounds amazing.
I could laugh about it now.
Yeah, I'm sure it was very stressful.
I wanted to do well for these guys. These guys had brought me to Hong Kong, and better yet, Jackson again wanted to show off. Jackson was very insecure, Jackson Hong, because he was considered not even Roger Corman. He was considered the guy who cleaned up the dregs of Hong Kong cinema, which already the Hong Kong people, and especially the people who worked in the genre, didn't have an enormous amount of respect for. Mm-hmm. It was like they were making Roy Rogers Westerns. They didn't consider it as glorious. There's another story I'll tell you in my next trip that, again, lets you know what the people who actually worked on these films didn't have much respect for them, except for Jackie, and the major guys.
Yeah.
So Jackson wanted to show off for me, to show me that he was, so he already knew from Matthew that I wanted to meet people. So the first person he set up my introduction for was Wong Long-Wai, who was a friend of his. They went to the same club. And he brought me to this club, which was in a penthouse, again, overlooking Hong Kong. Uh-huh. And I have the pictures, which is on my site, which I can send to you or whatever.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Of meeting Wong Long-Wai. And so we just met and sat and ate and talked. But then we had another meeting at one of the Ocean Shore studios again, where Wang Long-Wai and I actually talked. Wang Long-Wai had pretty good English. And he said, the very first thing he said to me, "You want to fight?" And I went, "Not you." Yeah. Not you. And we had a wonderful conversation, and he was very nice, very personable, very professional. He explained that the reason he made so many movies is he had to, because basically, especially Shaw Brothers, paid him the equivalent of $75 a movie.
Wow.
He was playing a villain. He was, for what's it, Marshall Club, he made $75. That's so insane. He just had to keep, you're on.
You gotta keep doing it. Then again, right?
Hong Kong was super cheap then, just super cheap. When I look back on it, I said, I should have bought everything. I should have bought Rolex watches, even if they weren't real. They still would have been good enough to be real.
Or buildings.
Huh?
Or buildings. Imagine how much those would be worth now.
I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
But I could afford good food. And boy, they did everything they could to show me a good time. It was great meeting Wang Long-Wai. Then I got Hong Kong disease, which is you walk into any store and you go from the 90% humidity and 90 degrees outside to a solid wall of ice.
Yeah,
because of the air conditioning.
Yeah.
And all their department stores are open, but they have this technology. So I was foolish enough because I would walk into every place and so the cold air went into my throat along with the hot air as soon as I left. So I got what they called Hong Kong throat. And that was another spectacular experience. One of the employees at Ocean Shore said, "Come on down." We went into the elevator, went down to the 7th floor where there was Dr. Ho. Dr. Ho, you walk in, there's a square waiting room. You sit on chairs, they're all lined up. Okay. You give the order, you walk in, Dr. Ho has another room that's almost just like it, but he's on a stool. You sit on a chair, he's on a stool. He doesn't do the Western doctor stuff, he does the Chinese doctor stuff, the Eastern medicine stuff. Took my pulse, looked in my eye. I think he may have checked my throat, but I don't think he had to at that point. And then what he did was that on his little stool, which was on wheels, he would move around the office, and all around the office were little drawers. There was dozens and dozens of little drawers, and he would open them up and take out herbs. He'd take out all these different herbs, and he'd put it on the little piece of paper for me. and he piled it up and he said, go make tea out of this. Drink it for 7 days. I mean,
That's so cool.
first day, it just already says her like, yeah, baby. That was, again, never forgot that. Now, here we went. The golden thing that Jackson Hung did for me was he got me into Golden Harvest.
Wow.
Unchaperoned. I was dropped off by a taxi at the door. The old Golden Harvest, the now ex-Golden Harvest studio, was kind of the opposite of Shaw Brothers, which I wouldn't get to until my next trip. It had a lovely little thing, but it had a lovely little gateway, but relatively small. It couldn't fit 2 cars. You know, each one would have to wait. And you were already going up this hill. Golden Harvest was basically built on the side of a mountain. And so all the offices were these little rickety stairwell shacks. They're nicely done. They're still a movie studio. Mm-hmm. When I ultimately got to their sets, it was astonishing, because you're crawling up into Indiana Jones territory. And then the door opens and there's a set. And it's like, nice. And my favorite thing, again, I should have stolen everything. They brought me up to the wardrobe department.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, and again, side of a mountain. So it was like going into a tunnel. It was going into a cave that was lined with poles on which were hung all the costumes.
Wow, that's
every costume cool. That was ever in the effing movies.
Yeah.
It was just stunning.
Did you recognize stuff from
Oh, sure. I mean, when we could talk about my trips to Taiwan, because a lot of Chang Cheh made a lot of movies on, and of course, the Venoms were all Taiwanese guys. They all grew up in the Taiwanese opera, and so I went to all the studios there. Those are the places you recognize, especially from Ocean Shore's videos. Ocean Shore's videos predominantly were made. The movies themselves were made in Taiwan or Malaysia or whatever, and Thailand. So the studios in Taiwan, it was like, oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah, I remember all the movies.
Everything, yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember this. I remember when they put the camera up in the Raptors and shoot down on this scene. Oh, it's just incredible. That's a completely different series of trips, because I love Taiwan far more than I love China at this point. So in any case, so I go to Golden Harvest, and of course the big deal is that I got entry to Jackie Chan. And Jackie Chan had an office at that time, and his was opposite. Raymond Chow was in a blockhouse over here, and Jackie was in one of these, you have to go up the stairways that looked like they had been built yesterday, to his little mobile home style office. But it was a double wide mobile home style office. The
nice kind.
Yeah. And they brought me in, and he was, I don't think anybody told him I was coming, but this had to be in the mid 80s, because I believe I had my book with me. I'm pretty sure I had the first book. Okay. And this was the first, and oh yeah, I forgot all about this. Jeez. This was the first book.
I've seen that one around, yeah.
And I had that one with me, and I had forgotten. I had to have it with me, because autographs everywhere.
Oh, that's so cool.
So what is the date on this? This is 1986. So apparently I was there in 1986.
Okay.
And he signed this for me, and John Sham signed it, and Choi Hark, and John Woo, and Gordon Chan. And
because that was the year that A Better Tomorrow came out, wasn't it? 86.
Well, that's another story. Because we haven't gotten to the Cinema City and Film Workshop section of my tale yet. Oh yes, what else do we have here? We have Eric Sang. We have Yun Biao with his address at the time.
What?
Because I had to send him a copy. I had to send him a copy of the book, because I didn't have a copy.
So he wrote his address down for you?
Yeah, and he wrote his address in my book, and and there's Lo Mong's signature, one of the Venoms, and I was in the hallways. I was going from Jackie's office. I want to finish the Jackie's office. I was on my way to Raymond Chow's office, and I'm going through these narrow hallways, that they had at Golden Harvest. And as I came around the corner, Yun Biao was coming around the other corner. And I went, holy mackerel. And this was my ticket to ride. This book was my ticket to ride. Because everybody I met, I would open the book and show them a picture of them.
Oh, okay.
I'm a writer from America. And of course, this is a fairly impressive book. I mean, you could kill people with this book. And so everybody was very happy. So they all wanted copies because they wanted, again, and this is the book that has 300 photos in it, not like my latest book, which has like virtually no photos.
Yeah.
Because at this time, all the photos were given to me by World Northall. They handed me everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of autographs in this book. So in any case, Jackie is standing there talking with what turns out to be his producer, a guy named David Chan, no relation.
Okay.
And they're talking in fluent Cantonese, passionately, the way, they do Cantonese. And he turns around and he sees me and he goes, "You, come here." And I went, "Yes, sir."
Yeah, right.
And he says, "Who would be best to direct me in an American film?" And I went, without even delaying, "Of course, you. You know you better than anybody else." He puts his arm around my shoulder. He brings me over to his producer and he points at his producer and he goes, "Tell him that." And Jackie was a fan of mine from that second on, that I said something which was true.
You had the right answer, yeah.
Yeah, and also the fact that, again, I mean, I couldn't get him on the cover. Did I get him on the cover? And also I couldn't get him in the title. That's why my new book came out and was called From Bruce Lee to Jackie Chan. Because
he's got him on the cover, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and huge pictures of him on the cover. And I didn't want ninjas on the cover. The publisher insisted upon it. Oh yeah, I got Jackie Chan on the back. On the next one.
Was this like around the era of American Ninja in those movies?
Well, it's just everybody. Ocean Shores had gone crazy for ninja to the point that they were really frustrating me. They took one of my favorite independent films, The Mystery of Chess Boxing, and they retitled it Ninja Checkmate. And I'm going, "There's no ninja in this movie." And they're going, "Oh, I don't care."
In their defense, though, it's a fun title.
It is a fun title, but it's meaningless.
It's meaningless.
Oh yeah, it's the wrong book. It's the wrong book. I'm sorry.
Ninja Checkmate.
Ninja Checkmate. And I'm going, and basically their attitude, although they didn't say it to my face, is that you Americans are stupid and you like this shit.
Yeah, you all
so
like
you'll,
Ninja.
You'll fall for it. So then I got the big Jackie.
Oh, there he is. Yep.
And after this one came out and had him in the title, From Bruce Lee to Jackie Chan and More, every time I saw him after that, he would do this pose.
Do the fist pose. Yeah.
He would do the fist pose. He goes, "Man, I never should have done that," because that was a photo they got for like Rumble of the Bronx.
That photo's everywhere. Yeah, I've seen that everywhere. Yeah.
And it was also apparently free to use. So there we go. So after that, he wanted me to spread my message, which was he's the best person to direct him in an American movie.
Okay.
So immediately that day, I'm sitting in Raymond Chow's office.
Wow.
And I'm sitting with Raymond Chow and we're talking.
Was he nice?
Saying, he's very nice, but he's a shark.
Yeah.
I could tell this was the guy who screwed Bruce Lee. I mean, who took his final film and turned it into a horrible tragedy to get revenge on Bruce from the way Bruce treated him. You could tell by looking at his face. You also could tell he's an incredible, I love the guy, he's great. And I also understand that he left the Shaw Brothers and he was under a huge amount of pressure until he found Bruce Lee and gave Bruce Lee his chance. He's a survivor and he had to do what he had to do to survive. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm still not happy with what he did to Bruce after Bruce was gone. I'm not happy with what anybody does to Bruce now that he's gone. But in terms of keeping him in 1973, not following his teachings.
Yeah.
That I may have gone into that in the last version. So anyway, so I'm talking to Raymond Chow, and at the end of the conversation, he goes, "So, what are you doing now? What are you doing here in Hong Kong? What do you do for a living? All the rest of it." And then I told him, and he said, well, maybe you should work for us. And I went, maybe I should.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep. And so I left. It was awesome. I was high as a kite. I was thrilled and delighted. And nothing really came of that, because the guy who was hosting me at Golden Harvest, who was my main interpreter, was Russell Cawthorne, who was the foreign distributing master. He wrote the Golden Harvest documentary on Bruce Lee, and he signed my poster of it because Bruce Lee couldn't sign the poster of it. And it was a very reputable and honorable documentary. But I don't think Russell wanted me involved. He didn't want me coming in and playing in his pool, and I don't blame him, because he was a British guy, and awesome British guy, and he doesn't need this little American wind-up toy getting in his business. And I completely respected that. And I had other fish to fry, which was I was going to go out and visit everybody else that I could. And that was Choi Hark, Film Workshop, Cinema City.
Yes.
And I arrived there, and again, I was just so lucky to be basically the first American with anything other than being a fan. I wasn't a fan. Matter of fact, I continually kick myself because I'm trying to be professional.
Yeah.
I work for Starlog. I'm on the set of Superman, and I'm not taking pictures with everybody. Even though the on-set photographer, Bob Penn, I was very good friends with, he would have taken pictures of me with Gene Hackman. He would have taken pictures with me with everybody, but I'm being professional.
Yeah.
So I go to, and what's nice is that I haven't got to that. Celestial's next.
Okay.
I go to Film Workshop, Cinema City. They're in an office in a building on Nathan Street, the main drag in Kowloon. Also, I took the Star Ferry. Taking the Star Ferry is just it's so wonderful. I mean, I never took any taxi. I had to do buses. I had to do the Star Ferry. I had to walk. Loved walking in Hong Kong.
You get to see everything that way, right?
Oh yeah, and also I love to walk. I basically am a master of walk fu. And so, I mean, I once took Vincent Lin from Operation Condor on a tour of Boston, and I walked him for 7 hours. And he's the Kung Fu master, and he's going, "Can we stop walking?"
I'm surprised you can walk for 7 hours in Boston. It's not a very big city.
Oh, when you involve Cambridge, sure it is.
Okay.
You go from Harvard all around to all the colleges, the whole circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got 7 hours. And also, I'm stopping everywhere and showing him stuff. But that's Boston. We have to do our Boston interview. Back to Hong Kong. So they're in offices, and they're busy. They're a little, I meet Nansen Shi, who was Choi Hark's wife, who was the CEO of the company. And there's Choi working on the promotion for a new movie that's coming out that night. Okay. And they're talking about with this very quiet, very unassuming little guy. And that's kind of racist, I'm sorry, this gentleman.
Okay. And
they're looking at this poster, and I look at the poster, and the poster looks like, and the gentleman looks like a teacher. So I thought it was a drama about teachers. Yeah. And the little English on it is A Better Tomorrow, and it's opening that night. And Choi Hark goes, "This is John Woo." And I go, "Hello, Mr. Woo. I didn't know John Woo from Adam or from anybody else." But that looks like, I mean, the poster was really good. I've been used to seeing all these flashy. This looked like a movie poster, not a film poster, not like a movie poster, a film poster, a true film made by an artist. And he says, well, thank you so much. He signed the poster. He didn't sign it to me. Most of my other posters are signed to Rick, so they're impossible for my nephew to sell when I die. And he signed it to me, and I said, "Well, this is great. I really want to see the movie." And they said, "Well, he says, I hope you'll come see to it." So immediately, because it's John Woo and Choi Hark, the rest of the staff all, their antenna comes up and going, "We've got to get Rick to see the movie." And so after we finished, I'm trying to see if I have some of the stuff that I stole from their offices. I don't think I have piles and piles of stuff here. I didn't get everything. I only had the highlights. So they spent the rest of the afternoon trying to find me a showing of A Better Tomorrow on opening night that was not sold out. And at the very last second, they're making phone calls. They're making phone calls to managers of cinemas all over the island and all over Kowloon. Everything is sold out, standing room only. So finally, on the other side of Hong Kong Island, and it turned out to be a blessing because that way I got to see the other side of Hong Kong Island, in a little town called Stanley, there was one cinema that had added a late show, an extra show to fill demand. And so the staff got me a ticket and they came with me to make sure, because they were sending Guilo to Stanley. There's no telling if Guilo would ever come out again. And so I had already seen a bunch of movies with Chinese audiences in New York at the Chinatown theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And I had seen some in Hong Kong at these awesome movie theaters, which were huge. It had the great snacks and all the families were there and everybody had a great time. And of course, it wasn't the crap you see in America with scratchy prints and panned and scanned and bad dubbing. It was all super widescreen. It was all beautifully subtitled in Mandarin and English. It was just so great. And also, I sat with people who were used to Kung Fu films. They had seen a lot of Kung Fu, and they'd seen a lot of Shaw Brothers, new Shaw Brother movie every week. You know, they made something like 51 a year or more. And
It's
that's
insane
everybody.
how many movies they made. Yeah.
I know, that's why they had the factory. We'll get to them next.
Okay.
But I had never seen a Hong Kong audience or a Chinese audience react the way they did to A Better Tomorrow. When the guns came out, it was like hundreds of years of Chinese repression and cultural influence exploded. They normally, the highest emotion or reaction that I had previously seen was from old ladies at these matinees where when a hero gets killed, they did what they did when a hero got killed in Peking opera performances, which they all went tisk, tisk.
Okay.
So it just sounded like crickets were in the theater.
Yeah.
Not here. They went bananas. Vocally, physically, and I knew, again, the energy in that room, I knew I was witness to something unprecedented in the history of Hong Kong cinema. And of course, it had the same effect on me. John Woo is an artist.
Yeah.
John Woo is a Chinese, Ong Lee is a Taiwanese artist, and the Taiwanese are all about artfulness.
Mm-hmm.
But not the Chinese. They're into craft, they're into survival, they're great craftsmen. There are not a lot of, cinematic artists. I would rank La Kaoyong as a cinematic artist. And also from what Jackie was at his height, which we'll talk about on Versus, the YouTube show on Thursday night, whatever the date is, because I don't know when you're posting this. I would make Jackie, Samo to agree. Samo's a great craftsman. But Jackie made classic, awesome movies. He revolutionized the industry. But in any case, Ong Lee was a cinematic artist. He was an auteur. And he made something that just blew everybody's mind. And it affected me not as powerfully as them, because I'd been used to Dirty Harry. I'd been used to, the Wild Bunch. I was used to the gunplay. Hong Kong was not. They didn't have guns in their movies almost ever.
Yeah.
And I remember turning to the cinema, the Cinema City guys, the film workshop guys, and because we stayed for, no, we didn't stay. That was the last show of the night. But during the credits, I turned to them and went, "That's not kung fu, that's gun fu." And I didn't realize until later, people told me, "You may have been the first one to use that term." But I defy any English speaker not to see that movie and instantly go, "Gun fu, that's gun fu."
Yeah.
But also I was inside Kung Fu magazine. I did my books. So I think I was the first one to use it. I was doing a lot of magazine guys. So I may have coined the phrase, but I may not have. It doesn't matter to me. But that was a spectacular experience. I mean, it's one of the great experiences in a cinema I've ever had. And then I suddenly look at this signed poster that I had and went, oh my, oh my. This is not a movie about school teachers.
Yeah, right. I've seen that poster, and it's like you have no idea what that movie is about if you saw
Yeah.
it.
Even I had the horizontal one for a while until I gave it as a gift to a dear friend. Horizontal has the landscape of Kowloon Island with the stars' faces in profile.
I think I've seen that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was signed by John Woo. So again, that was my first visit to Hong Kong, and I was in love. I loved the city.
That's
The
amazing.
city was so beautiful, and I was so excited. And of course, I went everywhere and told everybody about this great experience. And the book sold out. It went through reprintings after reprintings. I mean, until I wrote the second one in 1986 to 2000. I think this was 2001, maybe. But anyway, it kept selling. It was so, and so I was on A&E biographies about Jackie. Well, no, I wasn't. Not. I'm ahead of myself.
Okay.
I'm in England. Not yet. I had written a book called For 1 Week Only, The World of Exploitation Films.
Mm-hmm.
And it was found by Jonathan Ross's research staff because they were doing a television series for British television, because Jonathan Ross is the David Letterman of England.
Right. Yeah. TV host
And,
and everything. Right. Yeah.
to easily say. And he's doing this documentary series about the movies he likes. And they call me because it turns out that For 1 Week Only was the only book on slasher horror movies, on bloody, violent movies, which gave any humanity to the female characters. I distinguished between characters who were degraded and to characters who were debased. You're degraded if you're a girl in a slasher movie at that time. You're debased if your only purpose in the film is to be slaughtered. And I made that distinction in the book. And they had this one female researcher who said, you either get this guy to talk for your documentary or I quit.
Wow.
Because I was the only guy who had a more open-minded approach to this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got me in on the first series of Incredibly Strange Film shows. They brought me to Florida, and I worked on the Herschel Gordon Lewis episode.
Okay.
He did 2000 Maniacs and all these really pretty amazing violent films in America. And all I did, anyone who would listen to me during that trip, I would go, you have got to see Jackie Chan's Hong Kong movies. You have got to see Jackie Chan. You have got to see Police Story. Wait a minute, was it Police Story? Yeah, Police Story was out. Yeah, Police Story had just come out, but you've got to see Drunken Master. You've got to see Snake in the Eel Shadow. You've got to see Young Master. You've got to see Dragon Lord. You've got to see Police Story. You've got to see these movies. And Jonathan was like, by then they had found out that they were going. And I said, don't worry, I'll get them to you. And I had Jackie send him copies.
Oh, wow.
And he gets on whatever it was, the phone, there was no email then.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, how'd you like to go to Hong Kong? We're going to do the Son of the Incredibly Strange Film Show, the sequel, and we're going to do an episode on Jackie Chan.
That's so great. I've seen that episode too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
I saw you in there and I was like, hey, there he is.
So we go on what they call a recce. We went to 2 trips back to Hong Kong in the mid 80s. It was I think we went in 1987 and 88 or 88 and 89. And the first one was the recce, where we had to check out the locations, get all the ducks in a row. And they were kind enough to bring me on that. Because, I'm pretty sure Jackie said, you either bring him or you don't come. But I'm sure it's not true, because Jonathan is much bigger, and Jackie wants everybody to love him. So it's like they were kind enough to bring me. Yeah. And that trip was fairly astonishing from a variety of reasons. The first major reason, the little dirty reason, is that I went with a bunch of British guys. And what do the British do when they're not working?
They like to have fun drinking.
They have a lot of fun drinking. So they thought they were learning about me quickly that I don't drink. So it's like saying, so tell us the best bars. And I'm going, I can't. I can bring you to all these cool places that I think are cool. I can bring you to locations of Jackie's movies, but they said, don't. So we went through Central and we went to a bar called Popeyes.
Okay.
And they were hanging with the girls, with the dancing girls. They were in the champagne room where they were getting like glorified 7-Up for $70. And we get back to the hotel and the producer comes up to me and goes, Rick, can I sleep in your room? And I said, why? He says, this girl thinks I'm going to marry her. And she knows what hotel we're staying at. So I said, you can stay in my room, I'll stay in your room. And if she shows up, we'll play mahjong or something. She didn't show up, which was nice.
Okay, that's good, yeah.
But then Jackie again wanted to impress everybody. So he invites us to his 32nd birthday party.
Okay.
It's as usual with Jackie, he makes friends. Everybody loves Jackie now in Hong Kong. I mean, he is literally the new Bruce Lee, except he's Jackie Chan. Mm-hmm. He listened to Bruce Lee. Nobody else did. Jackie did. And that's why he became what he became. It was in a private room, a restaurant. All the tables were set up. Me and the entire crew from the Son of the Incredibly Strange Film Show, the producers, the star, Jonathan Ross, the director, Andy Harries, who's working on like The Crown now, Andy.
Oh, wow.
We were at what I called the Guilo table. It was all the white people table. Uh-huh. We were all sitting around at the white people table and the English-speaking table. And now they're happy they're there. I'm delirious they're there because everybody's there.
Oh, I bet.
All the stars, all the stars I know. You know, the guys who fought Jackie in Spiritual Kung Fu were there. They're all playing mahjong. Wu Ma's there. Yun Biao was not there. Sammo Hung is not there. But all of Jackie's people and all of Jackie's stars and anybody who's anybody in Hong Kong that night were there. And that's when I was talking to Melvin Wong. Because again, we were kind of relegated to just people who could speak English. I mean, I would go over and look at, Fai Shang, and it's like he couldn't speak English. So I didn't want to bother him. He's playing mahjong, so you don't interrupt them when they're playing their mahjong. But I still was like, and I think I do have some pictures from that. Oh yeah. John Shum.
Oh, that's John Shum, yeah.
Yeah, and down here is Melvin Wong.
Oh yeah.
He was the villain in Righting Wrongs.
Right, yeah.
And I was talking to him, and I was telling him how much I love these movies, and he looked at me and went, "You like these things?" I'm going, "Yes, they're awesome.
Come on, dude.
They're amazing."
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, he's just, oh yeah. Here's another guy I was very happy to meet. Again, he didn't know English. Little Jackie Cheung.
Oh, is that Jackie Cheung? Yeah.
Oh, he was just super awesome.
Oh, he must have been really young then.
Oh yeah, everybody was really young then. I was young then. And then of course I took the cake comes out. All Jackie's female stars are surrounding him, except, of course, with his father there too.
Oh, is that his dad in the white hat?
Yeah, that's his dad in the white hat. This was before Jackie found out what a criminal his father was. And again, another angle, or not the same angle, just another moment of the birthday party. And these are all on the set. So that was and then, my favorite thing. Jackie comes up to the Guilo table because he visits every table. Mm-hmm. And he looks at all of us and he's got this Jackie Chan look on his face. Listen, hey, you Westerners, hey, you British people, I'm hep, I'm with it. He says, every time I go to a different country, I always make love to a girl from that country. Do you guys do that too? And everybody at the table is like, And then Jackie sort of goes, okay, I'm just kidding, and walks away. And I look at it, I look at the producer and go, I'm kidding. Later on, I found out about Jackie's drinking problem. And he explained to me, look, at the end of every production, I have to have a drink with every single member of the crew.
Jeez.
As a thank you. And
That's
they never choose tea.
Yeah, right.
They're always, Courvoisier,
Yeah.
they're all, so yeah, he developed a drinking problem.
That's a lot of drinking.
So now I can't remember whether, I believe this next adventure happened on the recce. It may have happened during the actual filming, but I'm pretty sure it happened on the recce.
Okay.
Which was, I don't think this is the book for the event I was at, but they invited us to the Hong Kong Film Awards.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. And I had to go out and buy a jacket. I didn't have any, of the necessary stuff to do that. And
is it really formal like the Oscars? Do you have to wear like a tux, or is it less so?
No, it's a child. It's very much like the Oscars, but it's not as big time. It's Hong Kong. I also forgot to mention that Jackson Hung also introduced me to Lo Li.
Wow, really?
Five Fingers of Death. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's great.
He's awesome. And so we go to the dinner, and there's Lo Li with two friends of his in suits, and they were sending off. They might as well have had big neon signs above their head saying "Triad, Triad, Triad," because everything was Triad at that point.
Yeah.
And Lo Li wants me to sit down with these guys, and they start talking to me about, we should talk about maybe deals we could make, and I'm sort of going, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that at some point. I gotta go. And so we go in, and everybody's there. Quan Ta King is there in a cowboy outfit.
Really?
Chang Che is there. And I met Chang Che, but he may not have ever known he met me, because at that point in his life, he was bent over nearly double with arthritis.
Oh, wow.
His head was pretty much at his knees. And so it's kind of like, hello, it's great to meet you. It's like, so that was super weird.
Yeah.
Let me see. I have some pictures from the event. Oh, yes, here it is. Oh, yeah. So why tell you what it was like? It was in the lobby of this place. I believe it was a hotel. Oh, yeah. Here were the guys playing. This was back at the birthday party, playing cards and everything. That was the guy who played Jackie Superior in the Police Story films.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I showed you this picture, I believe, already, right? I have to put them in. Do I have it? Oh, yeah. There we go. And Jackie won, and I'm drooling. I'm so excited. Jackie and his stunt team won for Best Action that night. Okay. But then again, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So they after they won, they posed for pictures.
There they all are, yeah.
And you can see the way everybody's dressed.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of dressed that way too. And then of course because they all knew me now. Yeah, this wasn't on the recce. This was later. We came to this adventure on my next trip.
That's such a great photo.
And I had made friends with all the stuntmen and all the rest of it. So again, I did get ahead of myself. That was during the actual filming. The actual filming, I can't remember whether the actual filming was like 2 weeks later or 2 months later. They had to set everything up. Mm-hmm. So then we got to go, when we were filming, the movie they were filming was Miracle, Mr. Canton and Lady Rose, mm-hmm. AKA. And they were filming it on the Shaw Brothers lot. And the Shaw Brothers had just closed their film units. Now they were just using the studio for their television station.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, Wang Lung Wai and Lo Li basically told me that they felt that Run Run closed the film units. I don't want to overstate my influence, but unfortunately it's true. They basically closed the film units because of me. In other words, I had made them not just me and my book, but definitely World Northall, putting all the movies on syndicated television stations all over the country at that time. made them famous in the English-speaking world. I helped. The world know-how was the main thing.
Okay.
So at that point, most of the guys like La Kala Young and Chang Che aren't taking $75 anymore. Don't want to take $75 or more.
Mm-hmm.
And Run Shaw, being a good businessman, said, I'm going to be losing money on these movies. I'm shutting them down rather than have to pay everybody what they deserve. So he shut it down. So that meant the Shaw Brothers Studios was open for rent, and Jackie rented it, and Golden Harvest rented it. And I got to be, you can imagine what I felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even
Shaw
imagine.
Brothers
Yeah.
is on the other side of the island in what is known as the Monaco of Hong Kong. Beautiful rolling. I mean, it's amazing that everybody's shoved into the bay. And I understand why, because that's where the boats would come in.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of the thing is just gloriously beautiful, just wide open expanses. Those are some of the places they filmed those Kung Fu movies. Whenever they're out in the field and Jackie Chan is fighting it out in the
right, or like, yeah.
hills, that's where they would be, around that area. But that was a studio. The Shaw Brothers studio was like MGM, like Columbia, like Pinewood. The big main gate, the big main building, the huge expanses of sets. I mean, I found the stairs from Executioners from Shaolin. I found the main city walkway for all their television shows and their movies. And I took pictures of myself. They filmed my little interview sections of the show in the garden that they used in Deadly Mantis, or Shaolin Mantis. I mean, it's just, the stairway up to the Shaolin Temple was actually a stairway up to a parking lot. And also, I got to see the back lot for, like the Deadly Assassin. They have a beautiful sequence. That's the back of the Shaw Brothers studio, and with the glorious ocean and the island around it. I mean, it was just super, super fantastic, groovy, and awesome. And going to the set we stayed all day on the set of Miracle. I have a lot of pictures of me on the set, but I want to show you pictures of other people, not me.
Okay.
And Lolier was there, so it's like, hey, buddy.
Hey.
And because he played one of the villains in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and also we were filming a lot for the television show on the set, and there was a lot of talking. So of course I got my shot with the stuntman on the set.
Oh wow!
They're all hanging around.
Oh, look at you! can see that guy in the period costume too. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And then I got some shots of Jackie working. They were working on the big fight scene. Miracle is not a great movie. It's a well-made movie, but the fights are awesome.
Is
the
it
fights
the one with the rickshaws on the staircase?
Yeah, this is what they were working on at that time.
Wow.
And they would do. And of course, they would plan for days. I mean, if Jackie was like Buster Keaton, his idol, and Charlie Chaplin. If he didn't get an idea that day, they didn't film that day. So this is him working with the guys trying to figure out what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was super awesome. Also, he hung around. He had a fleet of Mitsubishi cars.
The Mitsubishi? I've heard about this. Yeah, he
had
a deal with them or something. Yeah.
And also their sign. They were like it was a car that's called Jackie Chan. You could buy a Jackie Chan Mitsubishi.
That's awesome.
But they made them from him.
I want one.
I should have bought one, although I have no idea how I would have gotten it home.
Put it on a boat, right?
Maybe in pieces. Yeah. Where's that picture I love? Where's that effing picture? This is Jonathan Ross standing on the set.
Oh, look at him. Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't he interviews Jackie on the set of that movie? Doesn't he, as part of the show?
It's his show. It's his show. The Incredibly Strange Film Show is his show. And the Son of the Incredibles. I had a picture that I love very much because it taught me who Jackie was as a filmmaker. Now, why can't I find it? Gosh, Dan. Oh, there it is. I put it at the bottom of the pile. Genius that I am.
Of course.
This picture I'm about to show you tells you who Jackie is as a filmmaker.
Let's see.
There was a moment when a car had to be moved. Jackie, number one, was not going to wait for anybody else to do it. And number two, he wasn't going to sit there and tell other people to do it. He got up and he moved it and everybody ran to help him. Jackie did everything on his sets. He would tell me stories and I believed them, that at the end of the day, he would be sweeping up.
Yeah.
I mean, these were handmade by Jackie. That's why while Jackie at his best was the best. Here's another Jackie in costume,
Oh, look
directing
at
the movie
that.
with the camera. They had a lean, mean camera crew.
That's so
Wasn't
cool.
it wasn't Hollywood, so we didn't have all these union people hanging out.
I've
Uh,
heard that from other people I've interviewed about how it's so different,
oh
if
yeah,
only because there's no unions, so it's the work is so different. Yeah.
and here's one of the results of my one of my results. This is a book, a Jackie Chan book that was all
Yeah.
over Hong Kong and all the rest of it. I learned an important lesson when I hung out with this stuntman. They were talking about how much they love Bruce Lee. And I had all these awesome photos of Bruce Lee from my book, a lot that I didn't use. And I said, I'll get them to you. So I sent them to him. And I was slapped around because they said, you do not give it to them directly. You give it to Jackie to give it to them.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He forgave me, and I never made that mistake. However, I do wanted to show you these. That Christmas, I got my Jackie Chan Christmas card.
That's so awesome.
It really was. And, of course, he's like,
Wow.
can you read it?
Dear Richard, Mary, I can't, is it say 90?
It says, May 1993.
Okay.
Um, May 93 be a super, super year for you. Love. Willie wrote that. Willie Chan, his manager at the time, and Jackie just signed it,
Oh, okay.
which is fine. But then my favorite card that I ever received from him, and this has been edited for your peace of mind.
Okay.
See if you can guess where my editing was.
Okay. Wow. Oh, yeah. Naked baby Jackie.
Naked baby Jackie hanging out there. Jackie the baby, and it says down here, so small then, so big now. Around his genitals, it says that. And then inside, Jackie was so happy and proud that he got an honorary degree.
Oh,
He
wow.
never went to school,
Yeah.
the Peking Opera School. So he was super proud of this. So he sent this up, this could not have been possible without your love and support all these in-between years. Thanks a lot. And
He looks, yeah, you can see how proud of himself he is in that picture with his,
it's a great picture of him.
yeah.
And he sent it to me. He didn't sign it, but I don't need it signed. So that was pretty cool. And let's see if I missed anything on that trip. That was the one I think we went to the Hong Kong Film Awards. And the Hong Kong Film Awards were pretty great. It was all just chairs, though. It wasn't like built-in chairs. It was kind of like
Oh,
hotel.
interesting.
So
Okay.
I'm watching it, but I'm kind of lost because they're all speaking Cantonese. I'm enjoying it immensely. And then I turn around, and sitting in the back of the room is Cynthia Rothrock.
Oh, wow.
And I go up to Cynthia because I had met her at the American Film Market when they were premiering China O'Brien, which was a Golden Harvest film. And how you doing? How you doing? What are you doing here in Hong Kong? And he said, oh, I just wanted to do a surprise visit to my boyfriend. And I said, oh, that's great. But she was so kind. She spent the entire show translating for me.
Oh, wow.
She would explain to me what stuff was going on. And then and I've talked to her about this since, because we see each other at least once a year.
Okay.
Her boyfriend at the time was Lo Mong,
Oh,
not
wow.
not the Venom.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, Mong Hoi.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know that guy.
Mong
Yeah.
Hoi was one of the stuntmen,
Yeah, yeah.
for Samo,
Hmm.
and he shows up at the end of the event with his present girlfriend,
Oh.
which Cynthia didn't know about.
Ugh.
And I did one of these. I'll leave you two alone.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Yeah, it was like, oh dear. She laughs about it now. She was not laughing then.
Oh, I can imagine.
And that was rough. So in any case,
Yeah.
so I was again, and then the show comes out. It does exactly what I wanted it to. It did it, which was it told the rest of the world, the English speaking world, who Jackie Chan was. He wasn't a Bruce Lee knockoff. He wasn't a Clint Eastwood clone. He was Jackie fucking Chan.
I
And
remember Edgar Wright, I think, said that he saw that episode And
A lot
that's
of
what
people did.
made him seek out all of those Jackie Chan films. Yeah.
And that's what led to Rush Hour. That's what led to for people treating him not like The Protector was them trying to make him Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Cannonball Run in the sequel was them trying to do Bruce Lee. Rush Hour was Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan did the action, but Jackie Chan was still pissed that that movie did better
Was
than
he?
movies at the time. Yeah, he was. He didn't want that director getting all the glory. He wanted all the glory, and I don't blame him because
Well, I mean, he's definitely a better director than Brett Ratner.
and he's a better person than Brett Ratner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now here's the deal. I go to work. I make a lot of friends in Hong Kong. I love these guys. They treated me extremely respectfully and treat far better than I deserve. And so I worked on a movie called Manhattan Midnight as a consultant with Albert Chung, who directed On the Run, and a producer named Tim Kwok. And Tim Kwok was hired to do the movie that became The Medallion.
Okay.
It was originally called Highbinders. And he said, I want you there as a consultant to counter another set of influences. So I was hired by Emperor Movie Group. And I came in ostensibly as the creative consultant, not on the film, but on Hong Kong cinema. Because for years I had been bitterly complaining. I had to make this shirt. There's no reason why I should have had to make this shirt. Should have been a shitload of shirts already. There should have been a shirt for every Jackie movie. There should have been a toy for every Jackie movie. There should have been a Jackie Chan toy world. And I went to everybody and said, Film Workshop, I'm going, come on, commercialize, tie-ins. I mean, because I had done the Moonraker tie-in, I had done the Alien tie-in, I had done all this stuff. And so ostensibly I was an emperor to be their consultant on how to make, and I did a 2-hour speech for them with a blackboard and showing them in details what they could do to make money. And I discovered something and I already heard about, but I was hoping I'd be able to break it. By the way, Gordon Chan, the director of Fist of Legend, was also working I believe he directed The Medallion ultimately.
Okay.
And even though it wasn't supposed to be him, it was supposed to be Reginald Hudlin. But Gordon, and I had wonderful lunches with Gordon. We had a lot of talks. And I also told him, and basically he told me the same sort of thing, even though I have some toys, I have some Gaionshi toys. I have the hopping vampire toys, but those weren't made in Hong Kong. Those were made in Japan and exported. They didn't know what they had and they didn't care because I discovered that for Hong Kong, and I understand why, especially because of what they're going through now, they're not interested in $1 tomorrow if they can make a penny today. So whenever they would ask me, always the last question was, what can I make? How much money can I make on this moment? I said, well, you have to use the same factories that the rest of the world is using here in Hong Kong to make this stuff. They're used to it. They'll be able to make toys like, what can I make now?
Yeah.
You have to have a leap of faith. You have to have faith in your own pop culture, your own stuff. You have to understand how much the world, what can I make? All right, never mind. Of course, I should have put my money where my mouth was. I should have created a consortium in America to do it. But again, they liked being racist. Yeah. I had to deal with the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. And Harvey Weinstein did more to cripple the influence of Hong Kong cinema on American film than anybody else in this country. But everybody followed him because they loved it. Oh, these little Chinese chinky boys. And they're still doing it. They're still calling dim sum sushi. They're still doing chop sake sui. The new Kung Fu television show has nothing to do with Kung Fu. So it's still very annoying to me.
Yeah.
So I get to Hong Kong. In 2001. Shit, China had taken over, but they were keeping hands off. My tailor had died, but that was short of it. That should have been a clue.
Yeah. The old guard.
And my booklet, Guide to Filming in Hong Kong,
Oh wow, look at that.
2001 edition.
Wow.
That's what it should have said. Guide to Filming in 2001 Hong Kong,
Yeah.
which is different than 1996 Hong Kong. So that was super cool. Let me see. This is later. Celestial Pictures was later. Shaw Brothers had sold its library to Celestial Pictures, a British group, to finally put it out on DVD and the rest of it. And I had a friend there, and they hired me to write the English translations on their back of the DVDs. And this is all the paperwork for 300 of the movies that I did translate.
Wow.
All the kung fu movies,
That's so
and
cool.
also other stuff that I loved. And the top one there you saw was Bastard Swordsman.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the list of all the stuff I had to do translations for.
Wow.
And these are pages and pages long. Return
Does
of
it
the
have does it have the cast listed there too? Is it like titles and cast and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
at the bottom there you can see the cast and crew.
Oh yeah.
And there was hundreds of these. And it was really, I was very, very flattered that they asked me to do it. And what happened was they also this guy who'd been working for the newspapers for years, who had been reviewing Hong Kong cinema for the China Morning Post or whatever it was. And they hired him to do some of these translations too. And after he read mine, he said, just get Rick to do all of them. He just gave me a super compliment. He said, he does them better than me.
Oh
And
wow.
then he explained to me later, it's because you like them more than I do.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah,
You got the
turns
passion
out
for
it
it.
does.
Yeah,
Turns
it really
out
does.
does.
Yeah.
It also helps to know kung fu if you're writing about kung fu, because if you're writing about martial arts movies for a kung fu movie, you're getting it wrong. Again, you're writing football stuff for baseball movies.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. So I was very pleased and proud, and I'm always happy to see the Celestial DVD. Oh yeah, and they also got the Celestial booklet with all their Shaw Brothers movies. And also, oh yeah, another thing I got to do at Golden Harvest. I did this at Cinema City as well. They had closets, and in their closets, they had crammed all this promotional stuff. They had no place to put it. They didn't have a storeroom. So I would go in and I would just,
just take stuff. Wow, look at that.
I would just take stuff, and basically, I think one of the crew guys, yeah, here's the God of Gamblers returns.
Oh, that's so cool.
Return of the God of Gamblers.
Yeah.
They basically said, take what they want. We just throw this stuff out.
What?
Once a Cop, Fong Sayuk 2, Fist of Legend. And again, I wasn't being Mr. Amateur Boy. I wouldn't go to everybody and have them sign it. I would just keep it. He's out of town, out of time, and out of his depth. City Hunter.
That movie is ridiculous.
And it's based on an anime,
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Operation Scorpio with La Leong. Yeah, look at that beautiful man there. Look at him.
Wow, that's so cool.
Let's see, Chinese Ghost Story.
Oh yeah.
Swordsman. The Killer.
Oh, what?
And this was at the bottom. I should have gotten this earlier because I was going to show. Oh yeah, The Killer.
Oh man, that is too cool.
At the bottom, I had my Black Belt Theater brochure.
Oh wow, yeah.
And again, they're showing kung fu movies, and they have karate. It's not the same. Not even close.
I know.
And again, I ran into the same thing where they put a karate guy on the cover of my DVD of Films of Fury, and they said, and I said, that's karate. That's not kung fu. The movie's called the Kung Fu movie, and they went, Walmart likes it. We don't care.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Got the whole booklet of the Shaolin Temple.
Wow.
Got the whole second booklet of the Shaolin Temple. Got the whole awesome booklet of the Stephen Chow movie.
Would they like sell those in theaters or give them away at theaters? Like what were they for?
These would be sold for next to nothing at magazine stands.
Okay.
Not in theaters. Again, that would make sense, selling it in the theater. Because they didn't have faith in their own stuff. Oh yeah, my hard-boiled brochure.
Oh man.
And So anyway,
That's
on to the adventure of working at
yes.
Emperor. I did the speech. The speech fell on deaf ears. You know, yeah, okay, fine, Rick, whatever. They put me up. I stayed there for a month
Wow.
in 2001 Hong Kong. They put me up. Emperor Movie Group was basically financed by a, okay, triad, probably named Albert Yeung. And he owned the Happy Valley Hotel. And they put me up in a mini suite at the Happy Valley Hotel for a month. Happy Valley was again on the other side. It's where the racetrack is. So everybody who's anybody, because everybody gambled in Hong Kong, I was able to look out my window and see the races from where I was. And I still regret that I didn't go to the races. I was having fun, but I should have gone to the races. The
Was it
experience.
horses or dogs or?
Horses.
Okay.
It was big time. Samo was into them for thousands of dollars,
Was he?
so if not more. And it was an awesome place to be. They had a great restaurant and all the rest of it. And so one of the first invitations, since I was nominally working on this movie and I was working at Emperor, is Jackie invited me to his restaurant. At that time, he had a restaurant on the Hong Kong side, right by the water, called the Fisherman's Wharf.
Okay.
And it was designed by Jackie. Knowing Jackie, he probably built it by hand.
He designed all the dishes.
Yeah, you go into the men's room and there are little signs by every urinal and every toilet going, don't mess up this place. Basically I knew Jackie would be in there cleaning it up if you missed the toilet or you missed the urinal. And it was in Chinese and it was in English. But I didn't sit outside. I later came back and sat outside. I went to Jackie's private room, which was called the Dragon Room.
Wow. Okay.
And it is still probably the longest meal I've ever attended. We're all at our tables again, but it wasn't all Guilo table. But I was at a round table, and there was a lot of Jackie's staff there, all of whom I knew, who were protecting me. But I had 2 chairs empty next to me, and it was not because I sweated and smelled bad. It's because I found out what the ritual was. This dinner was being hosted by Willie Chan, who was Jackie's manager, but no longer his manager, because Jackie had now gone over to Albert Young. Jackie had to go where the power was. And Willie was getting increasingly sick because he ate too much, he drank too much, he smoked too much. But he was still a father figure for Jackie, so Jackie took care of him. Probably paid for all his medical bills and paid for the rest of life. So Willie, who I also knew from my earlier visits very well, and an awesome guy, and he really loved me because I was doing good for his boy. I was treating his boy good. I mean, I'd done the Jackie Chan comic book, all these other things, the documentary, whatever. And so he was at the master table with the 2 women beside him, who were making sure that he didn't embarrass himself, which he did. But it's okay. It's his party night. But the whole idea is that when Willie Chan or Jackie Chan, and we'll get to that, the Jackie Chan dinner soon.
Okay.
When they have a dinner, anybody who's in Hong Kong that night comes to pay respects. Not kowtow, but to pay respects. And so for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and also I lost count of the courses. The Dragon Room was covered in pictures of Jackie in his movies, and it's beautifully appointed. I mean, all the cutlery, all the tablecloths, everything's beautiful. Really, really handsomely done. But again, and all this food is for Chinese. It's not for Guilo, which is great because I loved authentic Chinese cooking. I didn't like Guilo cooking. When I wound up going to China for 3 weeks, I only got stuck at the Guilo tables and the food was crap. I was in China for 3 weeks and I only had one good meal.
Oof.
And I also came, and it was at a mushroom restaurant. But I also came home with a little friend who had taken residency in my gastrointestinal system and took us 3 months to get rid of.
Oh.
Yeah, again, you can taste the tears of the Chinese chefs. And now it's got awful things in them. Anyway, but not here, not in Hong Kong, not in 2001, not at Fisherman's Wharf. Lost track of the number of courses. I stopped counting, I think, at 19. But what would happen is whoever came to pay respects who spoke English was seated next to me. And so I was just so happy. Not because they spoke English. I was happy about everybody, but I was so happy that Tony Wong spoke English. You know who Tony Wong is? Tony Wong is the Stan Lee of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
He's the guy who did the Jade Man comics. And since I started in comics, the fact that Tony Wong was sitting next to me.
That must have been so cool, yeah.
You're Tony Wong! And he's going, yes, I know! And I'm going, tell me about what you do. Tell me how you do it. But he didn't want to tell me how he did what he did, because how he did what he did was not really flattering to him. So, but we still had a lovely talk. And then in comes, come on, I'm going to blank on their names. The guys who just did Into the Badlands, Daniel Wu.
Oh, Daniel Wu, yeah.
And the choreographer, come on, Rick, Stephen Fong.
Okay.
Who also worked on House of Fury, one of my favorite Jackie produced films. And I really thought, and Stephen Fong was Jackie's protege and was, you know, the little Jackie at the time. That's why he showed up. And they didn't know any Chinese.
Daniel Wu was American, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, Stephen Fong knew, but he knew a lot of English, and they were already partnered up and making films together, and they were on either side of me. And we became very friendly. So when I saw them again at the Into the Badlands, yeah, that was very sad. We had AMC had a press conference for Into the Badlands, and I got to go to that. And I got to speak to them personally. I handed them my book, I handed them my DVD, and we took a lot of pictures, because by then I was a fan again. I wasn't a pro, I was just a private citizen. And basically after the interview, I went over to Stephen, because I saw the show. They showed me the first episode of the show. And I said, what the heck? Because I knew Stephen Fong could do the job. And he leaned into me and he said, all they told me was make it look cool. That's all they wanted. They didn't want him to spend time crafting great kung fu sequences.
Yeah.
They just wanted it to look cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, that's when I met them, at this dinner. And it was, again, just, if Willie had not collapsed in a drunken stupor, we'd still be there. We'd still be there eating if Willie had not collapsed in a drunken stupor and had to be carried out.
The 20-year meal.
I wouldn't have put it past him. And of course, we'd still be eating there, even though Jackie ultimately closed the restaurant not too long after that. So anyway, so I do my Emperor Movie Group thing, and they fold me into the making of and selling of High Binders / the Medallion.
Okay.
And I go to these events, and I could already see the fix was in, because whatever I said and whatever I suggested would be immediately countered by other people in a cheap jack way, in a you know, I could see this movie was doomed.
Mm-hmm.
That it was, and you could tell. But I also got to go out to Jackie's warehouse, his secret warehouse in Hong Kong. You could take me back now and you could put a gun to my head, and I don't recommend anybody do that stuff, because I do have friends who know Kung Fu, and I know a little, but probably not that good. Put a gun to my head, and I still couldn't find the place again. It was designed not to be found.
Yeah.
In and out, back and forth, over hill and dale. And you go to a little garage, and the garage opens, you go to another building, you know, another garage or whatever. And there's his warehouse with remnants of all, and his office with all his research books. And we sat down and did an interview for 2 hours.
Wow.
Again, it wasn't taped. It was, well, actually, I think it was videotaped, but for Emperor.
Okay.
And I didn't get a copy, because the other people who were sabotaging me in the office saw to it that I didn't get a copy.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I knew that fix was in too. I found out later the reason I was brought into this project was to try to be yin to this bad influences yang. But, yin versus yang, especially one who's respectful, these people who want to get ahead at any cost, I'm not going to fight with them. I'm a kung fu guy. I don't fight. I was just enjoying it. It was a great interview. Told me all these stories about Bruce Lee. So did I tell you the story about Bruce Lee in the bowling alley?
No.
How Bruce and Jackie truly became friends. Everybody on the set of Enter the Dragon and prior to that, Fist of Fury, everybody was like, oh my God, Bruce Lee. Either, oh, I hate Bruce Lee and I could beat him, or, I adore Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Jackie adored Bruce Lee. Jackie thought, I have a lot to learn from you, because to me, Jackie is one of the great Kung Fu film artists, because he does truly what Kung Fu is supposed to do as dictated by Bruce Lee, which is you learn everything you can from everyone you can.
Mm-hmm.
Not like these other Kung Fu guys. My style is the best. I only learn from my teachers, only my lineage, my style. And I already knew that Kung Fu is the human body, the human mind, the world around it. The rest is money and ego. So, your style is the same as his style. Human body, human mind, the world around him. The rest is up to you and your money and ego issues. So Jackie didn't care about any of that. My style, my style. Jackie could have easily created his own style. And in his movies, you can see him doing his own style, Jackie Fu. But he saw what happened to Bruce. So he wasn't going to teach people Jackie Fu, because you can't teach, just like you can't teach Bruce Fu. If I learn Jeet Kune Do, it becomes Ric Fu.
Yeah.
It becomes Will Fu. You can't do Jackie. And the fact that all these people are trying makes me sad, because Jeet Kune Do really only works for Bruce Lee. It was designed for Bruce Lee by Bruce Lee. So you have to learn everything you can learn from Jeet Kune Do, but also everything else. You know what I get like. So anyway, so Jackie sees Bruce Lee, and he and the other stunt guys, because it's a difference between stunt men and stunt guys. The stunt guys get paid 42 cents a stunt and are just, interchangeable. Life is cheap.
Yeah.
And they're all going to the bowling alley after work. So Jackie goes up to Bruce and goes, we're going to the bowling alley after work. You want to come? And Bruce goes, we'll see. And Jackie goes over to his guy and goes, oh my God, you talked to Bruce Lee. You talked to Bruce Lee. Oh my God, what, are you crazy? So they go bowling. And Jackie's bowling, and suddenly the whole place goes quiet. And Jackie Tan turns around, standing at the door, Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee comes over, doesn't change his shoes, sits down with everybody else, watches Jackie and the gang bowl all 10 lane, all 10 times, all 10, whatever it's called. I'm blanking on that now. Then he gets up, he thanks Jackie, doesn't talk to anybody else, and goes home. And basically, according to what Jackie told me, the entire bowling alley did what the audience did at A Better Tomorrow. They went nuts. They all jumped on Jackie going, Bruce Lee's your friend. Bruce Lee likes you.
You did.
Oh my God. That's why Bruce Lee gave him a moment in the movie where he wasn't anonymous, where he broke his,
he grabs him, right? Yeah.
Neck. I mean, he showed Bruce Lee common courtesy. He didn't suck up. He didn't kiss his ass. He didn't blow smoke. He showed him common human decency. That's why Jackie is Jackie and Bruce is Bruce. And other people could have, unfortunately, Bruce winds up, of course, dying shortly after that. So anyway, so Jackie, I'm in Hong Kong at the time of Chinese New Year, 2001.
Okay.
And this was hilarious. I go out to the parade, and I see this amazing thing of this Tai Chi master doing his form, while behind him, the entire Denver Bronco cheerleader squad is copying him
Really?
in the parade. And they're traveling that way in the parade. And I'm just going, this is super awesome. And then I hear behind me, there you are. And I turn around, and one of my better friends at Emperor Movie Group is, I've been looking everywhere for you. Jackie has invited you to share Chinese New Year dinner with him. And I went, I sort of, okay.
That's a
I
big
try not
deal,
to,
yeah.
you know, it's like, oh, and
Yeah.
I sort of did one of my kind of like, okay, Rick, you know, hey, you've known him for years now. He's, you know, you've kowtowed to each other. It's okay. Oh, I forgot. I shouldn't have got. We have to take a quick. I'm sorry, I lost track. He also invited me to the premiere of The Accidental Spy,
Oh, okay.
and that was the world premiere with all the stars in attendance. And I was sitting by him because he wanted me, because he knew, just like him and Bruce, that I wasn't going to blow smoke. You know, I'm the anvil. I do not, the Kung Fu anvil. I do not blow smoke. I do not lie. He wanted to know how his acting was, because he's very insecure about his acting. And have you seen The Accidental Spy?
Not in years. I have seen it, but it's
Yeah,
been like probably
it's
10
okay.
years. Yeah.
It it takes, and I tell him this. I said, why did you bring in that family at the end that we hadn't met before? Then why not you with the villains in that big chase scene? Because that would make it be more involved. And I said, your acting is great, but buddy, I have got to send you a copy of Million Dollar Baby, Clint Eastwood's movie.
Hmm.
Because even though he was compared to Clint Eastwood, I said, Clint Eastwood knows how to cry on screen. Watch what Clint Eastwood does in Million Dollar Baby. Because Jackie didn't do that. Jackie cried at every opportunity in every movie he could do. Whenever there
Yeah.
was a moment to cry, he would cry, and he would cry full tilt. And I was saying, that's performing. That's not really acting. Acting is acting the way you would if you did cry, but also doing it for the audience. Because after you cry 3 times, we've already seen you do it twice. We know you can do it. And then it just like looks like a weakness.
Yeah.
You know, come on, suck it up, buddy. And if you watch Clint Eastwood do it, he doesn't cry till the very last second. You can see him fighting it throughout the movie, but at the very end, he cries. I said, it's just like your action scenes. But by then, he wasn't doing the big action scene at the end of the movie anymore. He was doing the vehicular stunt. He
Yeah.
wasn't doing the fight anymore. But I said, your acting is really good, but you have to have faith in yourself and let that read. Communicate to the audience what you're feeling and thinking without having to show it. Try not to show it. Do your utmost not to show it, and then it will read. And so he was very, and I think that's what ultimately led to me being invited to dinner. But also at the accident, everybody again who was anybody in Hong Kong was at that premiere, including the man I had up till then only spoken to, because I was charged by World Northall to try to get a 6th package of Black Belt theater movies. And so when I was in Hong Kong at at Golden Harvest, I called Run Shaw's office.
Okay.
I got the number, fully expecting a secretary to answer. Run Shaw answered. Hello? Sir Shaw? Yes. I'm Ric Meyers. I've been empowered by World Northall in New York and America to talk to you about putting together a package for the 6th Black Belt Theater package for syndication throughout America. No, thank you. Well, I also wrote a book which has a whole chapter on your films. Can I send one to you? No, thank you.
Oh man.
Oh, well, okay. Thank you very much for the call. Thank you. Goodbye. At the time, I thought it was 6 words. I seem to remember he didn't. But I found out later, of course, he didn't. You know, he kind of blamed World Northall for screwing up his good thing with the film units.
Oh, that's interesting.
So there was no way he wanted a 6th package.
Yeah.
But I had never met him. I had never met him until The Accidental Spy premiere. 2001. How old was he then? He was in his 90s, I think.
Pretty old, right? Yeah.
But he was in great. I could swear he did kung fu, internal kung fu, because he was great. He was lucid. He was clear. He signed his name to the big poster. I got to say, oh, hello. You know, I talked to you on the phone one time. Could you say more than 6 words to me now?
Did he?
No. But he was very nice. He was, thank you and good to meet you. And he went up, and of course he had 2 beautiful women on either side of him, one on each side to make sure, because he was still in his 90s.
Yeah.
So that was super awesome. So then Chinese New Year took place at the Happy Valley Hotel. All I had to do was go downstairs.
Okay.
And we started on the 7th floor at the restaurant there. And again, we had a private room, Jackie's table, my table with the staff, and everybody who was anybody in Hong Kong showed up. And on that night in Hong Kong, the entire crew, not the cast or the director, of Rush Hour 2,
Oh, wow.
were doing reconnaissance for filming.
Okay.
The Denver Bronco cheerleaders, and then Oliver Stone,
What?
who's a big fan, not just of Jackie, but I soon found out what he was a big fan of, and I had heard that he was a big fan of this. So everybody's introduced, again, anybody who can speak English, they're all being introduced to me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, one of these moments. Oliver Stone looks at me and goes, you're famous. And I thought he was kidding. I thought he was
Yeah.
He sat down next to me, and all he wanted to do was talk about Chinese actresses. That's all he wanted to do. Did you meet her? Did you meet her? Maggie Chung? What are they like? You think they'd be open to me coming onto them? He didn't put it in those words, but pretty much that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
And so the dinner, again, many courses, but a prelude to after, because after the dinner, we went down to the 4th floor where they had the nightclub, the Pink Mau Mau.
It's a great name.
Yes, which had an emblem, and I still have somewhere here. I have the thing you put the glasses on, which had the name Pink Mau Mau, and they had a drawing of a drunken fish, little burps coming out of him. And we went down there, and we went onto the dance floor, and we were all doing this great stuff. And years before, my very first job I was a camp counselor at Farm Camp Lowy, a sleepaway camp in Windsor, New York.
Okay.
And one of my charges, I was like 16 years old, and I was taking care of 12-year-olds. I was like a child taking care of children. But one of our campers was the daughter of the choreographer for the Jackson 5.
What?
And one of the things she would do is she would teach us the moves.
That's so
We would
cool.
all be in the camps, and we would, stop the love you say may be your own. Don't take it slow, or someday you'll be all alone. And so I learned all this. So, I'm not, there's the effing Denver Bronco cheerleaders. These guys know how to do stuff in unison. So I start doing, with my partner, one of the Jackie Chan staff people, I start doing the Jackson 5 choreography. And the head cheerleader, like the Terminator, suddenly goes, boom, looks directly at me and goes, and says, "What is that? What is that?" And I explained the situation. She said, "Come on." All the girls lined up on either side of me, all the ladies, all the cheerleaders lined up. And I taught them the choreography, and we all did it in unison. And other people were taking pictures. But again, all I had was a camera, that I'd gotten from a Happy Valley pharmacy, that, one of those disposable.
Yeah, the disposable ones, yeah.
Yeah, and it was in my pocket, it was somewhere else. It was in the room or whatever. No, it was in my pocket. No, I think it was in my pocket. No, it wasn't in my pocket, because I would have taken pictures of me with Oliver Stone. Denver Bronco cheerleaders, for Pete's sake. But other people were taking pictures. Or maybe I did have it. Oh yeah, because that's the real tragedy. We've got that. So After that, Jackie brings us all into the private room, which is this private little sort of yin-shaped or yang-shaped room that had one-way glass looking onto the Pink Mau Mau dance floor. And everybody sat down and talked to each other on these banquettes. And who's sitting next to me? Oliver Stone. He wants to talk more about Chinese actresses. And sitting next to him is a really beautiful Malaysian actress slash model.
Okay.
And sitting next to her is supposedly her boyfriend.
Okay.
More than likely, it's her manager slash pimp.
Mm-hmm.
More likely, especially the way they behave. So Oliver would talk to me. Then he would stop and he would look over at the girl. By this time, Oliver was pretty much in his cups. He had a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, "You have beautiful arms." Then he put his hand on his arm and he pushed her into the wall. Then he went back talking to me. And he was so oblivious, I'm sort of giving him looks like, and he wants to talk more about girls. And then he would stop. He would turn to her. "What do you have beautiful hair." Take her by the hair, hit her against the wall. Go back to me. And I'm just going, up here, there's the angel and the devil on my shoulders. The angel's going, "Rick, you really should do this." And the devil's going, "It's Oliver Stone, Rick. He'll punch you." And so he's still talking. Finally, he turns to her and he says, "She's Malaysian. You have really beautiful lips." And she really did. He reached out, he put his hands and squeezed her lips and pushed her against the wall. And I just went, "Oliver, Oliver, what are you doing? What is going on? What is happening here? Really?" And he immediately did the same. He did the same thing Jackie Bailey did years earlier. "Oh, I was just kidding." And he goes wandering away to the person he came with, who I thought was Stephen Sondheim. Turned out not. He was a dead ringer for Stephen Sondheim.
That's interesting.
It turned out not to be Sir. When actually it might have been Stephen Sondheim, because the people who told me it was not Stephen Sondheim were not to be trusted.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So it might have been Stephen Sondheim. They had just come from Vietnam, with who knows what they were up to.
Yeah.
That's where they were in town for that day. So, and then the climax of the scene, and you can pretty much guess this. Guess who was mad at me?
Oh, was it the
model actress and the manager?
Yeah, because Oliver Stone is gone now.
Well, yeah, not only gone, but they had him where they wanted him after all this, well, why don't you put her in a movie if you like her lips so much?
Yeah.
So it's like, lesson learned. So that was, as I recall, the climax of that trip. I had some awesome, I was there for 3 weeks, a month, or whatever. I would commute every day to the office. I got to go traveling to Texas to interview Reggie Hudlin to give him these ideas for being director. And that's why he said, "I'm not going to be directing this movie. You guys don't know what you're doing." And so fine and groovy. And I went directly back to the airport. I was picked up at the airport by a dear friend of mine who works at conventions selling fantasy and science fiction artwork and movie artwork. And he picked me up and we drove directly to Florida, where we both attended the MegaCon, and I helped him at his booth. And then afterwards, we stopped at Universal and Disney, Florida. Florida, and went to all the rides. And one of the last rides I was on was the Double Dragon, which became the Harry Potter roller coaster at Universal. And I had the camera from this adventure in Hong Kong in my pocket when I walked in there, and it wasn't in my pocket when I left.
Oh man.
And I still kick myself for not going to Lost and Found.
Yeah.
Because they're used to guys dropping these things off.
Mm-hmm.
But I just said it was not meant to be. Not meant to be. And since then, the pictures I did have of the entire adventure, I lost those pictures. I used to have them right over here in the closet. I couldn't find them for today. So that's my story. I've been to Hong Kong since, but Hong Kong is not the Hong Kong I knew. It's sad now. I can do here's my impersonation of someone who's over 21 years old in Hong Kong now. They're always looking over their shoulder to see who's listening. And the sad thing is, someone always is.
Yeah.
And here's my impersonation of somebody under 21 who lives in Hong Kong now. Just keep moving. Don't look.
Yeah.
Of course, this was before I went back to Hong Kong, and I think in 2017 or 16, because I went to the Hong Kong Disneyland. This was before the riots. This was before the demonstrations. So they stopped doing this. They did stop doing this. They suddenly, boom, and let's go. So yeah, it's the way I described it to my friends who were hosting me that trip. It's like the entire city's under plastic now. Nobody's real anymore. They're just doing what they need to do to keep going, because all the power was taken away by China. They gave it all to Shanghai once they took over and stopped pretending they were going to let them live free for 50 years.
Yeah.
Now they stopped doing that. So any questions?
You mentioned very early on about one of the things a moment you wish you had a camera for on your first trip. Did we cover that, or did I miss that? At the end of your first trip.
But I wish I had a camera. Well, Quantock King.
Oh, in the plane, yeah.
In the plane, yeah.
With Typhoon and Peggy.
And also, I wish I had taken pictures with everybody, with John Woo, with Choi Hark. I did have, when Jackson took pictures of me, Jackie's producer took, the famous pictures of me with Jackie in his office, but I didn't have any pictures with Raymond Chow. I had a picture with Loliet, and I don't know why I didn't spread that around, but I can send that to you or whatever. I can send you all the pictures that I did have. Wish I had taken more, but not really. But that's why I wanted to do this interview, because I'm Captain Short-Term Memory now. And it's like, if I didn't put it down somewhere, by the time we do this next year, I'm going, what'd you say your name was? So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, no, I'm more than happy to be able to do this, and thank you for being willing to do it with me. This was really fantastic.
Yeah.
So many
Well,
great stories.
I'm glad. I'm very pleased. I love doing this stuff, and as you and your listeners now know, I do not shut up.
That's good though, because sometimes it's hard to get people to talk, and that's not as fun.
Well, it's not hard to get. What's hard is getting me to stop talking.
Well, I don't mind just listening, so that's good for me.
So, if anything else.
No, I mean that's great. That's exactly what I was hoping for, and I got it, and I'm very, very happy. So thank you.
I'm also extremely happy that I was able to go and see Hong Kong when it was Hong Kong. It's China now. It's China Kong, or it's Hong China, and certainly the cinema, if not on life support, is certainly on its last legs. As long as China feels the need to diminish Kung Fu and diminish Hong Kong, control Hong Kong, cinema will not be. I was lucky to be there at the birth and the life support. Let's put it this way: Hong Kong cinema is in hospice.
Yeah.
And so I feel sorry for everybody, and especially they're still enormously talented. Jackie Chan is still enormously talented. Sammo, Stephen Chow. Zhu Huangfeng, my favorite modern filmmakers, Zhang Yimou, but they're not being allowed to make the movies they can make. I do these silent interviews with Choi Hark. I've seen Choi Hark a couple of times, thanks to the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens, New York, other things. And we have these silent interviews where I sort of like I hold up a piece of paper, and then I get rid of the piece of paper, and he answers the question with just the expression on his face. Because again, Hong Kong person, so he has to see who's listening, and someone always is. and he
Yeah.
cannot be seen as someone who's unpatriotic. And it's not his definition of unpatriotic, it's their definition, which changes maybe a couple times a day.
Yeah.
So it is very, very, very rough to make films there now. And to make good films, probably impossible.
Well, and especially too now that I saw an article in Variety recently about movies that are getting canceled
Oh, yeah, of
because they're saying it's like technical difficulties, but obviously it's being
course.
censored and being and
Yeah. And also censored for reasons that are not immediately fathomable,
mm-hmm.
because it goes deep, their reasoning. In other words, Wu Jing, who is one of my favorite modern kung fu guys, he created a a mainland Chinese hero for his country. Wolf Warrior a little bit, but Wolf Warrior 2 was full blown. That was John Wayne for China. He
Mm-hmm.
created a credible, acceptable, relatable Chinese hero, not superhero, hero for the Chinese people. There's a reason why that's why the movie made more money than any other movie before it.
Yeah, the movie was huge. Yeah.
When you explained why China canceled Wolf Warrior 3. The rule that the Chinese Film Bureau came up with is we cannot be seen to be glorifying guns.
Okay.
So maybe they could let Wu Jing change the script, change
Yeah.
Wolf Warrior, so it is all kung fu. They don't want kung fu. They don't want a single hero. They want 3 billion heroes linked arm to arm. Again, what's the old line? If there's a nail up in China, the country will become the hammer and hammer it down flat. Wu Jing thought he was doing a good thing. He did a great thing. Mother China was not interested.
I've heard I have a few this was probably like 5 years ago. I interviewed someone who works in international distribution at I think Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about how China would, they would present these movies to China to hopefully getting released there, and they get rejected, and they would never tell them why, or they would give them reasons that wouldn't make any sense. Where like they would say, you can't have Godzilla because we don't do supernatural stuff, but you can do this other monster movie, and it like none of it would ever make any sense. Yeah,
But good luck. I mean, I think Monster Hunter deserved it, but look what they did. In other words, they used the excuse of one bad joke to kill the entire film rather than to edit out the joke. No, 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 no. Sorry. By having the joke in there in the first place, you shit the bed. So we're getting rid of the bed.
yeah,
But basically, they are understandable. They have spent centuries feeling inferior to the asshole Guilo, to the asshole American. There was a period of time when I was a consultant for businesses for studios, of how to sell their movie to China.
mm-hmm.
And basically recently I just sort of went, nah, you shouldn't pay me because there's no way you can do it. What you have to do is something you're not going to want to do. And it's also something you're not going to be able to do well, which is you have to kowtow like you mean it. You have to bloody your forehead on the floor, and they have to believe you're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not. You're not being honest. You're going to go in there and go, we make the best films. We're the best. We're all this stuff. And it's like Netflix, hey, they're groovy with Netflix because Netflix will let them have their freedom and put on whatever they make. Watch the Yin Yang Master. What was the other one I just saw that it was just like sort of like jaw dropping to me? And it was another, oh yeah, the Gods Reborn, no, Nietzsche Reborn, New Gods, Nacha Reborn.
Okay.
That's an computer animated movie, just came from China. That is quintessential modern, and so is the Yin Yang Master. They're doing these fantasies that my friend Ian Powers, who I think it still lives in China, and I don't want to get you in trouble, Ian, but you put it on Facebook, you texted it, so if China hasn't seen it already, it doesn't matter what I say here, which is he called it gold-plated poo. Gold-plated poo. And it absolutely is. They can make films like nobody's business, but they're not interested in making movies. They are not interested. Mother China does not want to get its 2.9 billion or whatever it is, their 2 billion people riled. They don't want their children excited. They want to be able to, do what George Lucas did with the prequels, which is have every audience just watch it with no emotional involvement whatsoever.
I did like the lightsaber fight with Darth Maul. That got me excited when I saw that
Wait,
movie.
wait till the book comes out. Wait till Ed Pressman's book comes out. Not Pressman, Ed Solomon's book on the Star Wars movies, because he had me come in and write about all the lightsaber sequences.
Is that the same people who did the James Bond one?
Yes.
I'm reading that Bond book right now. It's so good.
Thank you.
And yeah, so well, maybe we could do another interview about James Bond and martial arts movies or something like that if you feel up for it.
That's what I wrote about in the book. I wrote about all the fight scenes, and also because of Tomorrow Never Dies, I wrote about how Terry Hatcher got fired and they had to write the movie on the fly, concentrating on Michelle Yeoh. That was not the way it was supposed to go.
I remember you telling me that last time. Yeah, you talked to Barbara Broccoli, and she didn't give
She
much of a
wouldn't deny
comment
it.
on it. Yeah,
She did look like she wanted me dead.
Oh
But
man.
suffice to say, I have not been invited back to any more press conferences.
Well, at least you got to go in the first place.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, this has been incredible, and I can't thank you enough for doing this. I'm very, very excited.
Thank you enormously too. I enjoy, as you can tell, I really enjoy doing this show.
And well, maybe we'll see you again sometime.
Basically, again, not getting me to talk, it's getting me to shut up.
Okay.
And also, at one time, my good friend, name dropping, although it's not really a major name drop, the amazing Kreskin said, "You know what you are, Rick? You're a vampire. You're a very good vampire." And I said, "Why do you say that, Kreskin?" He says, "Because you go where you're invited."
No, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I only go where I'm invited. It's true. Because you know how I act. You bring me to a party and I just start going off like this, and everybody's going, "This old man will not shut up." So basically, I never go anyplace unless I'm invited. So if you want me back,
just send the invitation. Okay, I know what to do. All right.
Any day, anytime. I just sit here and type.
Okay.
That's all I do. And do my qigong. That's all I do.
That works for me. Okay. Well, until next time then. It was great talking to you again. Thank you so much.